Hi everyone and welcome back to The American Abroad. My name's Hannah if you don't already know, and today I'm going to be talking about how to travel around Europe while you're studying abroad on a budget. Today I'm just going to be sharing all of my tips and tricks and what I have been using to look at travel plans and to actually plan my travels. Before I get started, I'm going to let y'all know that all of the websites and companies that I'm going to be talking about will be linked down in the description below. The very first website that I want to talk about, and my go-to website when I'm thinking about traveling somewhere, is goeuro.com. Now, GoEuro is more of a platform in which you can find flights, trains, and buses to practically anywhere in the world. The great thing about GoEuro is that it orders all of your options into what is the cheapest and as well as what is the fastest. I just use this website simply to look for my travel options. I don't necessarily book directly from GoEuro. If I find an option that I like, I typically go through the actual provider itself. So for example, if I find a flight with Eurowings, then I will book it directly with Eurowings rather than booking through GoEuro itself. And this is because GoEuro can sometimes up the pricing just a tad bit, maybe a few euro or so. It's just really good to make sure that you're getting a deal as well as you're not paying more than you should have to. The next website that I use is Skyscanner. Skyscanner simply just offers flights to pretty much anywhere. Now, just like GoEuro, Skyscanner offers all of the options that you can book, as well as when you click through the options, you can find on which websites you can book it through. My tip with this website is to make sure that you are paying attention to who you're flying with, as that can change what kind of baggage allowance you have. So if you fly with Eurowings, for example, that might be different baggage measurements than maybe Ryanair. The third website that I look at is also Flixbus. Now, Flixbus offers bus services throughout, I believe, the majority of Europe. They're currently running a beta test on the train line between Berlin and Stuttgart. It's super cheap and it goes nearly anywhere, so it's a really great option if you're looking to save money. The only con to Flixbus is that for long distance travel, it can take a really long time. It can be up to several hours or even up to over 24 hours. I have taken both a Flixbus and the train service that they offer through Loco More, and both were really pleasant and really enjoyable. However, I do not recommend it to people who get motion sickness easily, like I do, because it can be a nightmare if you're stuck on a bus for 6+ hours with motion sickness the rest of the way. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the budget airlines that I suggest. The first airline that I typically go for is Eurowings because I've flown with it before. They offer cheaper flights than the large name airlines, and they also travel to most large European cities. I haven't had any problems with Eurowings, and nor have my friends had any problems, so I would definitely recommend it if you are willing to spend the money for it. There's also an airline called Ryanair that offers really cheap flights to certain cities and from certain cities. So for example, if I'm flying out of Hamburg, I can only fly to certain cities. However, if I fly out of Stuttgart, I may be able to fly to different cities that Hamburg just doesn't fly to. And that can sometimes be deceiving if you're willing to take a train to Stuttgart, for example, and fly to X destination, because in the long run you end up spending the same amount of money that you would spend towards a Eurowings ticket out of Hamburg, for example. The other thing about Ryanair is that it can sometimes be unreliable. For example, I have had friends that have tried to fly with Ryanair and their flights had gotten canceled about 2 or 3 weeks out from their actual departure date. But travel in general is based totally on your budget, so if you don't have the budget for your Eurowings, Ryanair will probably work perfectly fine. So now that I've talked about transportation, I want to go ahead and talk about housing. Now, there are two websites that I use because I don't really stay in hotels when I travel here. The first one that I use is Airbnb because it offers a really great alternative place to stay as well as amenities like a kitchen to save money on food. The great thing about Airbnb is you can stay in a really beautiful apartment as well as talk to the locals and see what their suggestions are about what to see, what to do, and of course what to eat, as well as it tends to be a little more comfortable than your average hotel or your average hostel. But when I'm traveling to a city and I find that the Airbnbs are a little too expensive for me, I also look on Hostel World, and this is a great platform to find multiple hostel options all in one place. Each hostel lists its sleeping arrangements, what it offers, and for what price, as well as you can read reviews from actual travelers who have gone to this hostel to confirm whether it is a good place to stay or not. In my opinion, hostels are great for solo travelers if you're looking to meet people and maybe see if other solo travelers are willing to travel with you as well. And it's also just a great way to save money in general if you're just looking for a place to sleep and keep your stuff. So next I'm going to talk a little bit about the tips that I have found or my friends have told me about traveling within Europe. First and foremost, for any directions or maps, always use Google Maps. You can download the city that you're going to offline and use it while offline. So you don't have to rely on using data or getting international charges or out-of-country charges, etc. This is a great way to look at local transit if you need to get from one place to another, or as well as look at restaurants and sites that you want to see or try. And for a lot of people, they think that taking a train is often less expensive than flying. And that's not always the case. It's definitely dependent on where you're going. So for example, if I wanted to go to Amsterdam or I wanted to go to Copenhagen, it would obviously make more sense for me, being in northern Germany, to take a train from here. As well as pricing, it's definitely a lot cheaper for me to take a train. However, if I were going down to Italy, for example, to Rome, it wouldn't make any sense, nor do they offer train travel to Rome. So I would have to take a plane. But a good way to see if it's worth it is always to compare pricing before booking a trip somewhere. And if you decide to fly, make sure to always travel with carry-on. With airlines like Ryanair or Eurowings, you often have to pay more in order to take a checked bag with you. And for a weekend trip, if you're traveling solo, or you're traveling with maybe 2 other people, it doesn't really make any sense to check a 50-pound bag essentially per person for a weekend trip. If the idea of traveling with just a carry-on is kind of scary to you, wear your heaviest stuff on the plane, pack your lightest stuff, and then do the same thing over again when you're returning. If you decide to stay in an Airbnb or a hostel that has a kitchen, make sure to use it. Eating out with every meal can be really expensive, particularly if there is a currency exchange involved. Really utilize your kitchen and cook from home. Go to a grocery store, really see how different it is in that country. Saving money doesn't mean that you can't go out, you definitely can. And if you decide to go out, try a local cafe instead of a really big name brand restaurant. The local dishes are really worth it in the end. And my biggest tip for those who are studying abroad is pick one thing to collect. For example, I collect postcards from every city that I visit, and I use that as decor for my room and as well as a memento for me to keep. The great thing about postcards is that they're lightweight, so when I take them back to Hamburg, it's not going to really add anything to my carry-on. Other examples of things that my friends have collected are stickers, patches, pins. You can collect scarves, keychains, trinkets, you name it. There will be something that you can collect in every single one of these countries. And you don't have to use it as decor necessarily. I just use it because I have a pretty blank room as is. So those are all of my tips on how to travel on a budget throughout Europe. I'm sorry I didn't post a video last week. I was kind of sick and dealing with the flu, so I just wanted to kind of take a break and really get back to my normal 100% healthy self. But if you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and hit that bell so you can get notifications on when I post a new video. I hope y'all have a beautiful week, and I will see y'all next Sunday. Bye guys.